to us because he dropped in on an absolute worst show. And just blow our socks off. Also a Navy vet. Give it up for Rich Hancock. My name's Rich, and I'm out. Technically, I am a Navy vet because the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I've never ingested crayons in my life, so that's not something that I've done. I was part of the Smarter Pod, or so I thought, which allowed me to tell you this true story that you're about to hear right now. In 1990, after graduating as the first ever combat correspondent that the Marine Corps had, I was a 4341, I was assigned to Naval Station Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico. Why would you give a young man with a drinking problem the keys to Puerto Rico, where a rum and coke from the Bacardi rum factory was $1.50. $1.50. Something very bad happened prior to my being stationed there. It was called Hurricane Hugo. It was devastating for the island. It was devastating for the base. Mass destruction. One of the things that happened was a fishing boat, a very large commercial fishing boat, was pushed up on shore at Fajardo Bay. Fajardo Bay, by the way, in case you didn't know, is where all of the rich people, including Jimmy Buffett, dock their boats as they're sailing around the Caribbean. So in this bay is this giant fishing boat, and this entrepreneurial man decides, we're never going to refloat this thing, let's turn it into a bar. Everyone loves a good bar that's on a boat, right? We did. We loved the bar. So I was a non-commissioned officer at the time, a corporal in the Marine Corps, so I had access to both money and a vehicle. And it was a 1974 Toyota wagon that was spray painted a good 30 different colors and had the fins from a missile that didn't deploy and had skated down the runway stapled to the roof. So it had wings, it was gorgeous, it was beautiful. I paid $150 for it because it ran. So I drove that out to the Shipwreck. That's the name of the bar. It was called the Shipwreck. And I took my best friend Mark with me. We were both NCOs, and we thought ourselves, fancy because we had, I made $1,559 a month. So we were big time money, right? So we go out there to get our $1.50 drinks, and there's a very attractive couple sitting one table over. Now the lady looked familiar, like I'd seen her before, maybe on TV or something, lots of blonde hair, she was in a bikini top. The gentleman had wild, curly, long black hair. And I tried really hard yesterday and today to practice his voice. It was a Brooklyn accented voice that also sounded very familiar. But every time I practice, I sound like Christopher Walken. So I'm not going to do it for you. But he was speaking, and he's like, hey, I find myself enamored with your breasts. And so he's having this conversation that we're overhearing, and we're drinking our $1.50 rum and cokes, and this guy goes on, I'm like, I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that voice. I know that guy. That's Paul Stanley. That's Paul Stanley of Kiss, I think.
Wow.
I think. He sure sounds like Paul Stanley. So I'm arguing with Mark back and forth, and he's like, that's not Paul Stanley. He says he's not even wearing makeup. I'm like, you're right. He's not wearing makeup. But he is wearing a black leather vest, black shorts, and shoes just like these. I'm like, would Paul Stanley wear that? He would wear a black leather vest. He would be with an attractive woman in a bikini. I'm gonna go say hi. So I walked over and said, hey, excuse me. I feel like you're Paul Stanley of Kiss, and I'd like to buy you a drink. And he looks up at me, he's like, hey, I'm definitely not Paul Stanley, but if you want to buy me a drink, go ahead. I was like, well, I'm not buying you a drink if you're not Paul Stanley. And he goes, okay then, I'm Paul Stanley. That's brilliant. but I'm not buying you a drink because you're not Paul Stanley. So for the rest of the evening, another hour and 15 minutes, he'd look over at me and I'd be like, "What's up, Paul Stanley?" And he'd just smile and wave back, and I'm like, your lady's pretty attractive. And so finally, he's getting, I think, a little tired of this, and I said, hey, I'm gonna buy you a drink anyways. Because I think you're Paul Stanley. And he takes the drink and he gives me a salute, and he and his beautiful lady get up and they start walking down the pier. At the end of the pier, there is a gate where the really rich people punch in a code and they're able to go through this gate out to their $1 million yachts. So off they go through this gate, and I grab Mark and I shake him like, "Fucking Paul Stanley, I told you, it's Paul Stanley." He's gone. They're gone for a long time, so we keep getting our drink on. And after a while, I see him walk back. But he's solo. And he's got a guitar in his hand. So he walks up onto the ship, and he comes in, he's like, "Hey, guy who's gonna buy me drinks all night. I'm Paul Stanley." And I'm like, yeah, right, sure. Play your guitar, Paul Stanley. He's like, "What do you want me to play?" I looked at him like, "Rock and roll all night, bitch." And so he begins to play, and he plays, and he sings a little bit. And all of a sudden, everybody in the bar is paying attention. There's probably 20, 25 patrons. And it sounds a little like it. It sounds like this might actually be Paul Stanley. So I'm starting to have a visceral emotional reaction because I'm a kid who grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, and I loved Kiss. I had every album, including Peter Criss's solo album that contains the song Beth.
Yeah.
Now, Beth, for me, is quite an emotional song. It was the first kind of ballad that I was ever into. I ended up for a while marrying a wonderful woman, Beth, who was a lesbian, but that's irrelevant. But Beth is a powerful song for me. And so, as he's done playing rock and roll all night, I went and ordered him a drink, and I walked over and I said, "If you're really Paul Stanley, will you play me Beth?" He's like, "What do I look like, fucking Peter Criss? No, I'm not gonna play Beth. That's not my song." And I'm like, "If you love me, if you really love me, you'll play me Beth." I said, "Fuck's sakes." And then he played Beth. And it was, in fact, Paul Stanley of Kiss. And we had a great evening. For the rest of the evening, another maybe hour and 30 minutes, he would occasionally play a Kiss song in between me funneling drinks his way. The man was a tremendous drinker. I think I paid for a good $20 worth of drinks that night. It hurt the pocket, but that was it. And when everything was over, everybody's starting to leave the bar because it's 4 a.m. now. He walked over and he said, "Hey, I appreciate you buying me drinks all night, Dave, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, I appreciate you playing my song." And then he hugged me, and I realized that he was sweaty. It smelled really bad. And that's the lasting memory I have of Paul Stanley. Thank you all.